Deputy Mary Lou McDonald, please.
Taoiseach, last December, when the joint report of the EU and British Government negotiators was published, you hailed it as a panacea for all of Brexit's ills. You said at the time, and I quote, that it achieved what we sought to achieve in respect of avoiding a hard border. You said it was not only rock solid but indeed cast iron. You claimed that it was politically bulletproof. And your language was such, Taoiseach, that very many people took you at your word. We in Sinn Féin urged caution at the time, urged you not to oversell the achievement, and of course our caution was well placed, because shortly after the December announcement the British Government rowed back, and indeed have been rowing back on their commitments ever since. The bottom lines and the needs to mitigate Brexit are well known. No hardening of the border on our island, no undermining of the Good Friday Agreement, no loss of citizens' rights. And the so-called backstop arrangement is supposed to be our guarantee, our insurance policy, that there would be no hard border on our island and that the interests of our citizens would be protected. And I'm sure you agree that those protections remain absolutely vital, because the consequences of Brexit are very real. They're a threat to our social and political fabric and our economy north and south. They are real and they are lasting and enduring threats. Brexit is for keeps. And to combat those real and enduring consequences, we need a solution to match. A solution that isn't time-bound or temporary, one that isn't couched in ifs or buts or conditions, an absolute permanent guarantee. And I thought that was clearly understood by all of us here. I thought that that was your position, Taoiseach. There can't be any fudging on that. And we need to be clear that a temporary or transitory backstop is not a backstop at all. Temporary protections mean no protection. Answers for our country need to be real, and enduring Brexit, as we know, is not compatible with the Good Friday Agreement, and we need a unique, bespoke solution for our island. So yesterday, Taoiseach, when you said that you were willing to consider proposals for a review clause in respect of the backstop, you shifted position. Not a matter of nuance, but a substantial and, I believe, a very reckless change in position by your government at this most sensitive time in the negotiation. I think that your announcement yesterday was a cock-up, plain and simple, and I want to ask you to clarify for us today the position of your government, and I would invite you to set aside any notion or any proposal of a review clause in what is to be our insurance policy in the face of Brexit.
Thank you, Deputy McDonald. Taoiseach.
Thanks very much, Deputy. I think when it comes to Brexit, we should always remember what we're trying to achieve here. First of all, we're trying to achieve a withdrawal agreement so that there is an orderly departure of the United Kingdom from the European Union. We want there to be a transition period so that we have 2 years or more. Businesses, individuals have 2 years or more to prepare for any permanent changes that might take place, and that's really important for our economy and jobs. We want to protect the common travel area, and people know why that is. We want to protect funding, such as Peace and Interreg, particularly for Northern Ireland and the border counties. We want to guarantee the citizens' rights and freedoms of European citizens living in Northern Ireland after Brexit. And when it comes to the backstop, we need a backstop as part of the withdrawal agreement to guarantee that there will never be a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. It may never need to be used, and if it does need to be used, it may well be temporary, but we do need it, and it must apply unless and until a new agreement is in place to supersede it. Therefore, there can be no expiry date and there can be no unilateral exit clause. And were there to be either of those things, the backstop would not be worth the paper it's written on. That is the position of the government. That hasn't changed. A review clause would have to be negotiated. We've yet to see proposals from the UK as to what it would look like. But if we do have a backstop, if it is used, if it does apply, and potentially if it lasts into perpetuity, it may be to our advantage or necessary at various points in time to have a review. But a review is very different to an exit clause. and we cannot accept an exit clause that would allow the UK to unilaterally resile from the backstop, nor could we accept an expiry date. And that's been the position of the Irish Government all along. But, Deputy, we do actually want there to be an agreement here. And sometimes to come to an agreement, particularly as you get to that point where an agreement might be possible, to come to an agreement sometimes you need to be creative. And that means being creative around solutions and being creative around language. There would have been no Good Friday Agreement if John Hume and Seamus Mannon and David Trimble and even Gerry Adams didn't understand that. There would have been no European treaties if people who negotiated them didn't understand that. And I know you were against all those European treaties before you became in favour of them. So yes, I'm open to creative solutions. And yes, I'm open to creative language. But we will not resile from our fundamental position that there has to be a backstop as part of the withdrawal agreement, and that backstop cannot have an expiry date or unilateral exit clause.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy McDonald.
So, your difficulty, Taoiseach, is that you have in fact resiled from your stated negotiating position, and you've done it at a time that arguably couldn't be worse, because now we're at crunch time, we're at truth time, and we had urged you and the Barnier negotiating team not to blink in their dealings with the Tories in London, to stay the course in what are very reasonable bottom line protections that Ireland requires. You say we need an arrangement with no expiry date, with no unilateral exit clause, and yet you countenance a review mechanism. And all that serves to do is to muddy the waters. That's all. I don't know, have you lost your nerve? I really hope, for the sake of this country, that you have not. We don't need a review clause. What we need is a clear enunciation of the protections in legally operable text. That's what we have all been agreed on. That is the job of work. But yesterday, Taoiseach, you potentially torpedoed all of that.
Thank you, Deputy.
So I would urge you, as head of government, not to lose your nerve, not to blink at this late stage. And I would ask you, Ceann Comhairle, if I can put it to the Taoiseach, how on earth, at such a sensitive time in a negotiation, you would commit yourself to a review clause? Reviews, by definition, imply things that are time-bound and transitory. How you would have committed yourself to that when you now say on the floor of the Dáil that you have seen no wording, that you don't in fact know what it would amount to?
Taoiseach.
Deputy, quite clearly I've committed to nothing. I've said that we're open to considering a review clause, but I've set out very clearly what that review clause could not contain. It could not contain an expiry date. It could not contain the unilateral ability of the UK to resile from its commitments in relation to there being no hard border between Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland. But as I said before, to come to an agreement, you sometimes need to be creative, and you have to be open to creative solutions and creative language to get to an agreement. And those people who negotiated the Good Friday Agreement, who negotiated all those European treaties, understand that. And you can still achieve all your objectives in doing so. But I have to say, Deputy McDonald, I think it is a very good thing that you're not leading these negotiations. You hold the world record for failing to negotiate a coalition agreement in Northern Ireland now more than 2 years. And the truth is, and we can see it from your performance here today, you're too extreme, you're too uncompromising, you're too bullying. And you would turn our friends into enemies within months. And it's a very good thing that you're not handling these negotiations, Deputy McDonald.